Apparently, kids with nonverbal autism are telepathic. These are the claims of a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. They claim that children, savants, essentially, children with nonverbal autism, can talk to their moms or read their mom's minds. Or, I mean, I don't even know how do you believe any of this? I have some notes here that I'm going to look at that I've wrote. So to summarize, people with nonverbal autism are able to telepathically communicate with other nonverbal people with autism, almost like in a chat room that they call the Hill. I mean, isn't this the most wildest idea that you've ever heard? Now look, if you're the kind of person that believes in any kind of paranormal activities, any kind of pseudo-scientific theories or whatever, then you're going to love this podcast. But if you're a rational, logical person, you might be skeptical of the information, that this podcast is pushing on you. To me, honestly, it doesn't seem any different from like Finding Bigfoot or any of those ghost hunting TV shows. It's kind of in the same category where it's rooted in reality, but it's probably not. And it's, highly likely that it's a bunch of bullshit that they've put together to sell. Now, this podcast was, the reason I'm making this video is because this podcast was number one for a few days, dethroning Joe Rogan from Spotify's global charts or something along those lines is what I read online. Which means a lot of people are intrigued by this topic, so I thought I'd talk about it as well. Now, I think there's a lot of misinformation going on in this podcast. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence to be backed. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of credible people involved. It seems like they have a few, people with degrees and doctorates and PhDs involved, but they all seem a little dodgy if you ask me. I don't know. I don't know. But essentially they've run a lot of facilitated communication tests, which is what's not very credible, is what they say. It's sort of, to put it simply, it's kind of like using a Ouija board where everybody kind of is involved in moving the little fucking triangle or whatever to where it needs to be. And that's how the tests look like that they've ran. It looks like they've ran tests where the nonverbal autistic person is communicating, like typing on a keyboard with the help of someone holding their hands to type. So it's kind of manipulative in a way. It's kind of it doesn't seem real. It's people influencing the nonverbal child to speak. It's also bringing a lot of awareness to autism, but I think this is a pretty terrible thing to be blown up the way it is because it's not real. That's the stance that I take on this podcast. It doesn't seem to be believable in any way. Majority of the tests they run just seem very easily to manipulate, easy to game the system. It's not necessarily a foolproof test. It seems involved with a bunch of people that can guide the autistic person to make to say words that they didn't say. It's kind of breaching their human rights in a way, in some sense, right? Because it's like you're lying that what the child is saying is what they're saying when they're not saying what they're saying. So the question is, why is this podcast number one and why is it blowing up so much? And obviously the idea of telepathy seems superhuman, right? It seems extraordinary, so it's intriguing, it draws people in. But also there's millions of people around the world millions of parents around the world that have autistic children that are nonverbal, and they're looking for any kind of answer, any kind of solution, or any kind of thing that can help them. And when you hear something like this, it kind of means like, oh wow, we can maybe start implementing some of these tests and see if our kids, it's very misleading for these parents, and I don't like to see that. But truly, this is not a solution for autism or any kind of it's not an improvement in any sense. I think, this kind of pseudoscience theories and pseudoscience research is only going to halt progress on real evidence-based science. That's really it. I don't really have much to say on this topic, but I just thought I'd share it, see what you think. Do you believe telepathy is real? Is it real? Is it not? Who knows? We'll find out when when more research is done. But as of now, as of the history of humankind, this is not real.